Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. I know I'm still way behind from that Biden episode, doing my best to catch up to the same day, I promise. So let's get right to it because there's a lot to get through. What would you bet is the one item of the next stimulus bill that Mitch McConnell says is non-negotiable? Money for the people and the economy? Money for states to avoid bankruptcy and keep people employed? More testing and PPE? Guess again, it's lawsuit immunity. As discussed before, Republicans want to remove the right to sue over coronavirus-related issues. This would mean that corporations could not be sued by their employees for those corporations requiring them to work in unsafe conditions, having provided insufficient protections, such as masks and social distancing. But it would also protect Republican politicians themselves, as many have required their own employees to come to work without masks. Louis Gohmert has been one such anti-mask congressman who, coincidentally, contracted COVID recently. Just yesterday, his staffers started coming forward saying that Gohmert created a very hostile working environment for those who chose to wear a mask, including directly berating them. So, you have Republican senators shouting that their top priority during the most dire economic crisis in American history is to protect themselves from the consequences of their own deadly partisan hackery. Sounds about right. This is why it pisses me off when people, including many prominent Yang Gang, say the parties are the same. They are not. I'm not going to give my loyalty to either of them because they're both self-serving corporations at the end of the day, but don't even try to tell me there's no difference. Maybe at some point in the past they were equally crappy. At this point, the Republican Party has hollowed out its soul to make a throne for Trump, and they're now literally offering human sacrifice in worship to him. Not the same. On that note, can you believe that Congress hasn't been required to wear masks all this time, while they told the rest of the country to comply? At this point, you probably can. Pelosi only just now required everyone entering the House to wear a mask. These are people who come from all over the country and interact with hundreds of people daily, i.e., the perfect disease vectors. Can't imagine how this pandemic got out of control with such bold leadership as do as I say, not as I do. But hey, at least they're consistent with our president. A study from Yale University just came out that reveals the unemployment insurance bonus of $600 a week, which Republicans have been fretting over for preventing people returning to work, found that in the aggregate, the expanded benefits, quote, neither encouraged layoffs during the pandemic's onset nor deterred people from returning to work once businesses began reopening. Workers facing larger expansions in unemployment insurance benefits have returned to their previous jobs over time at similar rates as others, end quote. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago found a similar trend, according to MarketWatch, in a June study. Quote, those currently collecting benefits search more than twice as intensely as those who have exhausted their benefits, end quote. In bragging about revoking Obama's affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Act, which requires communities that receive federal funds to undo their patterns of residential segregation, Trump gave us a piece of his mind, tweeting, quote, I am happy to inform all of the people living their suburban lifestyle dream that you will no longer be bothered or financially hurt by having low-income housing built in your neighborhood. Your housing prices will go up based on the market, and crime will go down. I have rescinded the Obama-Biden AFFH rule. Enjoy. End quote. Earlier in the month, he said that enforcement of the desegregation mandate is an effort to, quote, abolish the suburbs, end quote. Trump tweeted on Thursday to, quote, the suburban housewives of America that Biden will destroy your neighborhood and your American dream. I will preserve it and make it even better, end quote. So, first off, you're just openly declaring poor people to be criminals and a blight on society. Second, your solution to that is to keep them out of sight rather than to help them. And third, you actively support segregation. This is quite the campaign you're running here. Giving up on poor people and minorities altogether, I guess. I wish I could be surprised. Some good news in Portland for once. Governor Kate Brown announced that she has reached an agreement with Trump to withdraw federal officers back down to the original squad that occupies the courthouse year-round. The withdrawal began Thursday. However, they may simply transition to Chicago, who knows? Perhaps Trump has decided that the occupation is working negatively for him. Perhaps he simply wanted to revive the dwindling tensions again and then leave so he can continue to blame Democratic leadership for it. Or perhaps he genuinely wanted to stop the property damage and has finally acknowledged that his tactic made things worse. Wouldn't count on the last one, though. Trump has displayed no sign of ability to acknowledge his own fallibility. The antitrust hearings were conducted with Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon CEOs testifying in defense of their company's growing domination. The highlight was probably an email pulled from Facebook, where Zuckerberg argued that Instagram should be bought to neutralize the competition, a perfect example of the type of business practices antitrust laws were created to guard against. Personally, I don't have a lot of hope for anything coming of this. There are very few true capitalists left who remember that capitalism requires antitrust regulation to prevent monopolies, eliminating the competition that capitalism prizes. Mostly, this is due to the monopolist corporations lobbying our politicians to be their minions. This is why campaign finance and lobbying reform is so important. Government will not serve people until it stops serving whoever has the best bribe. If you want to hear some of Yang's thoughts on the hearing, there's a short clip below. Minnesota's Bloomington City Council voted 6-1 to include ranked choice voting on the ballot for electing the mayor and city council members starting in 2021. If you live in Bloomington, November is your chance to vote on better voting. So meta. Tim Robinson wrote an article on how UBI is capitalism 2.0. It explores how the rate of global GDP growth is dropping due to a lack of demand driven by lack of consumer buying power, and explains that UBI is the solution, and a far better one than what will otherwise happen, which is either isolationist or socialist transitions. I think it pairs very well with my own capitalism argument, and have added it to the thread. Definitely give it a read, bookmark, and share. The UK's Edward Davey recently posted a plan to fund a UBI with shares of companies traded to the government in exchange for clearing coronavirus debt, similar to Scott's arguments for a nationwide dividend, and certainly fitting in well with Yang's terminology. Link below. Mayor Tubbs gave a TED Talk on his work in Stockton, recognizing and combating the structural racism and poverty that has been concentrated in his city. Scottish TUC hosted a webinar discussion on the labor crisis between advocates Kate Bell for a federal jobs guarantee, Paul Vaughan for a UBI, and Will Strange for a 4-day work week. I'll take all of the above. Check it out in the links. There's going to be a virtual discussion of UBI's effect on business, the economy, and society between UBI Works' Floyd Manescu, the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce's Bianca Caramento, and Basic Income Canada's Samir Nurmohamed. I'm certainly interested to hear what they think the macro effect would be. The event takes place on August 18th, and you can sign up at the link below. Yang wrote an article on his experience and the experience of other presidential candidates in the campaign and how the media treated them. It's a short but powerful piece. He talks about his first big speech in Iowa, how he and 3 others gave their speeches, and how the one candidate who he thought gave a terrible speech was the one who the media gave all the attention to, ignoring his actual performance and printing pre-written narratives about him being the strongest contender against Trump. That was when Andrew learned that, as he puts it, quote, many members of the national media feel they have a responsibility to reinforce particular candidates and narratives and dismiss others. They don't just report on the news, they form it, end quote. Andrew also heaps praise on Marianne Williamson and Joe Sestak, 2 of the lesser-known candidates, in talking about how the media ignored or belittled them, despite their history of service to country and to community. It's pretty moving, honestly. I suggest giving it a read. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Read, bookmark, and share Tim's UBI capitalism article and Yang's media campaign article. Help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petitions. Flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need financial help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.